You know, the injustice we've seen over the past week is not new. It's not the first time the police have been videotaped using excessive force. None of us can ever forget Rodney King. It's not the first time people die in police custody. And it isn't the first time that a grand jury has vetoed justice. Why are people walking around with their hands up saying, "I can't breathe"? Why are people saying, "Don't shoot"? Why are they proclaiming these things all over cities in America? It is because of a long train of abuses, not one particular case.
Michael Brown was a black teenager killed by a white police officer in Ferguson, Missouri on August 9, 2014. Witnesses described the event folding out by Michael Brown raising his hands, but Officer Darren Wilson continued to shoot.
And at that time, he turned around with his hands up, beginning to tell the officer that he was unarmed and to tell him to stop shooting. But at that time, the officer was firing several more shots into my friend.
Missouri law allows a person to use deadly force to defend themselves. Darren Wilson says he did what he had to do in order to protect himself.
I mean, the next thing was, how do I survive? Because I didn't know
How
if
do
I
you survive?
Yes, I didn't know if I'd be able to withstand another hit like that.
Facts show that Michael Brown was unarmed and that he was shot 6 times.
They determined that no probable cause exists to file any charge against Officer Wilson.
This event was not a one-time thing. Eric Garner, a Staten Island man, choked to death by another police officer with video proof. The police once again found not guilty. This angered many people in Ferguson and all across America, causing them to take the streets and question how the system works. Tamir Rice, a 12-year-old boy, shot dead for playing with a toy gun. A scary trend comes out of all these deaths that is hard to ignore. The officers all white and the victims black. This racial divide has been the main cause of anger. Minorities feel that they have always been treated differently by the police and been profiled as criminals much more often.
And I think it happens because we've allowed ourselves as a society to say that certain people don't matter.
The police have been unnecessarily aggressive and militarized in poor communities and communities of color for a very long time.
And the law is usually not by their side when it comes to situations like this.
There's a problem in our criminal justice system. There's a denial that there's huge grave injustices happening to people, and sometimes the people who we elect to be in charge of that system or who are hired to be in those positions don't necessarily exercise their power in just or fair manner without regard to race, class, or sexual orientation or gender.
But many others claim that it is just the few police who have the problem.
Right from your academy training all the way through your last day on the police force, officers are trained consistently to address the issues that we face every day. Somebody may not want to talk to us, they may want to push us around, they may get aggressive with us. And a lot of times this can be done by just talking with a person, using some verbal judo, okay? Other things that we do is train the officers to understand why a person may be upset.
Many people also fear the over-militarization of the police.
It's about how we as a society have become a police state, a militarized state. You know, our police, we're using terminology that we use in war when we fight against enemies of the state. So when we adopt that in our local policing, it's very dangerous.
The city of Ferguson and other communities of color are losing the trust that is needed in the police. 39% of whites have a confidence in the police, compared to 37% of blacks.
By not prosecuting police officers for their offenses when they do commit acts of brutality against community members, we are basically saying that's perfectly fine. We don't consider that a crime. You were just doing your job. You're just doing what the policy dictates.
When the police engage in communities in this hyper-aggressive, hyper-militarized fashion, it undermines public confidence in law enforcement. It makes the job of law enforcement that much harder. The police are there to protect and serve, not to wage war against the communities that they're designed and supposed to be
But
protecting.
many people still stick by the decisions of the police and the grand jury and believe that race does not play a factor in these issues. What will come after this? Obama issued his plan to spend $263 million to expand training and increase the use of body cameras.
I'm encouraged by President Obama's initiative that will help purchase body cameras for police departments. This will increase accountability of the law enforcement, and it will protect our police officers by deterring wrongdoers.
I do know that there's a bigger cost factor than what is letting out to believe right now at this point. It's one thing to have the body cameras, okay, and then you got the expense of purchasing the body cameras, but then you have the expense of downloading them, you have the expense of recording or storing all those recordings. And will it help the officers? If the officer doesn't do anything wrong, does he really need a camera? No, because he's done nothing wrong. But if it helps the public feel a little bit more trusting in us, then I'm all for it.
Many steps need to be taken in order to improve the relationship between the police and the
We need to
people.
get out there as the police, all right, and work with the community. We need to train with the community. We need the community to come out and do the same things with us. We have to understand each other. If we don't do that, okay, it'll never improve.
The recent events in Ferguson have brought to light many of the problems that still exist in our nation. Racial divides, mistrust of the law enforcement, and a judicial system that disproportionately incarcerates black men, and the unfortunate way that we view one another, not as Americans, but as us versus them.
They put their club upside your head and then turn around and accuse you of attacking them. They attack you, bust you all upside your mouth, and then take you to court and charge you with assault.